Hi, how's it going? I've been pretty busy, but did get a bit of time to myself. I've been watching The Last Samurai, which is alright. It's very interesting. Stars Koyuki from Pulse, Cairo, a very good ghost movie that I watched some time ago. And I'm seeing bits of her there on screen, and I keep thinking that a ghost is going to come in, but hasn't happened yet. Anyway, so it goes through all the usual scenes, Tom Cruise instantly learns Japanese and then just keeps creeping on Koyuki. He's like, I am a traveler in a distant land. But anyway, if I do any more of that, I'm going to just go out of my mind. So I think it's time. I was going to do a few more tutorials before I got to this stage, but I think I'm just going to start the second project, the next project in this sort of tutorial series. And that is Wolfenstein. No, Dogstone. Dogstone. That's going to be the tutorial. It's going to be a game, Dogstone. And I'm going to gamify this a little bit because let me be real with you. There's one thing that I see that no tutorial series kind of talks about, and it's super important. And people get this wrong, and that is working in groups, working in teams. I see projects where I could do the project. The stuff that I see, it gives me anxiety. I could do the project in a week, me by myself, and teams will work on this for months and not make progress. It's crazy. Plus, if we go out there and try to get jobs, then teamwork is a really, really super important skill. I feel it should be taught more. So that's how I'm gonna spin this. Hey, do you have a team? No, I don't. Wait, no, I do. Okay, so let me introduce you to my team. First of all, my workhouse, my workspace. You see this? This is the lake house. I come here on weekends with my team and we work on the game. Okay, let me introduce you to my team. We're going to have Andre. He's the graphics specialist. He's a bit of a, he's a bit finicky. He likes things done a special way, but Andre, he can get the job done. Then we have focused freelancer at desk.jpg. Whoops, I mean Andy. Andy is just a general programmer. He's a pretty cool guy. He's pretty chill. He's going to be doing some general programming work as well as sound effects on Dogstone. He's going to be the sound engineer as well. And then we're going to have Andrew, handsome young guy. Does he look a little bit like John Carmack? I don't know. But he's going to be the lead programmer. That's me. Sorry, I'm going to be the lead programmer. I'm also going to be in charge of images. Now, the way we're going to work is we're going to work through this program as if it was a team project. So there'll be a heavier emphasis on documentation. There'll be a heavier emphasis on getting components of the project done in parallel. So something may not be fully implemented. So we have to work on things independently and test as we go. And yeah, it's going to be a slightly different flavor. But let's pretend that we're sitting down for a group meeting for Dogstone and we want to work out what we're doing. The first thing I would do is I would kind of sketch out a few mock-ups. So let's say we're playing the game and we say, okay, what do we want to see? Well, we probably want to see some little bars with health and ammo, whatever those are. We want to see I can't draw. I'm not the art person. Wait, I am. I'm doing images. Oh, well. I'll Google it. Anyway, we want to see a hand with a gun or something, like a standard classic first-person shooter. And we have the 3D view of the world, whatever that is. Just whatever. It's a 3D view. Okay, so that's the kind of in-game view. And then we want to have it so that, of course, we'll have an in-game menu. So when we hit escape or whatever, then we'll have our in-game menu, and that in-game menu will have some options like return to game, scratch this one, start a new one, save the game, load another game. Oh, running out of space, that's fine. Maybe set some options at the time. Okay, we're going to have the same game view that we had before, so we'll have, health and ammo. That'll be persistent, and I'll just scribble here, right? So just whatever the 3D view we're seeing before, this menu will be drawn on top of it. And then we just keep mocking this up to as many of these mock-ups as we feel we need to do. So, we could have like a save menu, and let's say we'll constrain ourselves to 3 fixed slots, which we can't rename, because we are still kind of keeping it simple. Slot 1, slot 2, slot 3. Okay, and let's start looking at the game menu. So we'll have a game menu. And this will be slightly different because this isn't in-game like these ones are. We have the title of the game, and then the usual sort of start a new game. We don't, I guess we're not going to save, load a game, set some options. And then, for instance, on options, only options I'm going to worry about right now are the music volume and the sound effects volume. And those will be done with maybe some little slider widgets. So whatever it is, we can change those options. Fair enough, cool. So that's just good to see like what this is going to look like. In the early stages, the more planning we can do, the better it will go. And if we were doing this in a real team, we'd be probably meeting up maybe on a weekly basis to just check in. So then the next thing we could do is we could say, okay, what are we going to... What's the overarching idea? What objects are we going to have? Now let's just start with the menu for now, because that looks reasonably involved. That's a good place to start. So, as you know, I'm a massive fan of the model view controller architecture. I think that's a great design pattern to work with. So let's start with model. And if we're talking about a model, if we're talking about a menu, then the model classes will be each of the widgets which we can put into our menu. So some examples there are frame class, and what I'm going to do for each of these is I'm going to say, okay, so these things will all have properties, and just to improve, I mean, personally, it's not my thing, but if we're working with groups of people, we might want to make the code a little bit more accessible. So we'll give it general sort of getter and setter functions. So I'll write this here. So this is a function which is affecting something. So I'm going to take it as an arrow in and an arrow out. And we're just getting any property which the frame has. We'll look at that in a second. Then for setting, our button, it's the same for all of these. Okay, awesome. So that's kind of our model layer. Our controller layer, we will have a general app, and this is something we could talk about quite a bit. And the app will have, there's a concept of a general sort of controller. And the app owns some sort of controller. it could be different sorts. It could be a game controller even. But the idea is it's an object that exists and it just has a function which tells it to execute its main loop. And I'm drawing this out because when it's told to do its main loop, it does its thing. And when the main loop ends, it will send a signal back. It will return a code to indicate what should happen after this. Okay. Now the controller in general should... actually, you know what? I was going to say let's have the controller own these things. Actually, no. Umming and ahhing on this. No, I'm going to leave this. Okay, so the controller has several flavors. We have a menu controller, which is an extension of controller. So it is a subclass of controller. We have a load menu controller. I'm just looking at the things which will be involved in the initial on-screen menu. So we have menu, load menu, and then options menu. Okay, cool. So what do these things take? Well, they all kind of take the same thing. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna run this into the controller. So I'm gonna say, okay, the controller can take some information. It can take the mouse position, and it can take click events, so left click. So those are things coming in, and then they will be handled by the various controllers here. Now, the menu controller, let's say the menu controller owns a frame and buttons, and it's going to get a little messy. Now, I probably should have made another subclass called like GUI controller. The reason I'm not running these directly into the controller is that in the future we might want a game controller. That's probably a poor choice on my part, because all of these will actually never mind. Hey, you know what? Yeah, let's redo that for now. Okay, yep, we're just gonna pretend at the moment that controller is the only sort of thing. And later on when we have a game controller, we'll handle that differently. Okay, so then in the view layer, we have a GUI renderer. Yeah, let me just write that. GUI controller. Okay. Now a GUI renderer is owned by a GUI controller, and a GUI renderer has one signal that comes in, and that is a command telling it to render, and the argument to the command is a bunch of widgets. So it's saying render this stuff. Widgets, let's say we could pass in a reference to the original GUI controller and then read things through there, but then we deal with like layers of indirection. It's a bit funky, whatever we want to do, but I'm just going to go with this. I'm going to say widgets is a dictionary which has the keys are, and it's really important to, I would say it's pretty important to work out what the keys are ahead of time. We'll have something called frames with a list of frame objects, something called buttons, and sliders. Okay, cool. I guess there's just one more thing, and that is that we're going to have a bunch of files which are acted on. So like I said, we're going to have 3 game slots. Those will probably be text files. So they exist, and the load menu controller will have some sort of interaction with those. And we're also going to have settings. So we'll have a settings file, which doesn't store much, but we'll have some sort of I/O interactions with that file as well. Okay, so the point is these objects are not created yet, but if I want to create a GUI controller, I can do that before the other objects are created. If they're documented properly, I'll trust that they're working. So, okay, probably a good idea is to look at some of the designs of these model things, because see, I've just said general, set, and get. It's not super descriptive. Okay, so first widget I'm going to look at is a frame. Now, things that a frame has is it has a center, which is an XY coordinate. It has size and a background color. And just like you would imagine. Okay, so we'll say, alrighty, we have this, we have a center and a width and a height, and that frame has a background. It's pretty much just a colored rectangle. Then I'll say, alrighty, what about a button? A button has a pretty much the same as before, a center. It will also have some text. Oops, not test, text. A string which will go there. And we will also have a foreground color and a highlight color. So when the mouse hovers over the button, it could flash up the highlight color, and the foreground color could be used for the text, for instance. Okay, so we have that. Let's also make a label. And the label, again, will have a center. And a foreground color. Okay. Then we will have a slider. And a slider is probably the more involved of all these widgets. So the slider has a bar, and then it has a handle. And let's normalize this. So let's say it goes between a value of 0 and 1. We can always adjust those numbers, and the center is right there. So if the handle is at the center, be 0.5. And then we can probably like click on the handle and drag it around, or click anywhere on the bar and it will reset there. Okay, so what do we have? We have a okay. We're also going to have two functions which we can use on the slider. Oh, actually, no, because for completeness, all of these properties are going to have getters and setters, so I'm not going to write an explicit getter and setter for the value. That's fine. Okay. So this is probably enough to start the diagrams plus these widgets. Now again, we're not going to do any actual coding, but we should at least get a common GitHub repo set up. Okay, let's do that now. Alrighty, so we have GitHub up here. Let's create a new repository. Doesn't matter. Let's call it Dogstone. Okay. Yep, that is fine. Create that repository. Okay. Now what we need to do is we need to what am I thinking? We need to create some stuff and mind blank. Okay, we need to create the documentation and put that through. To test, I'm just going to make a, let's go open with code. We'll make a markdown for the README. You know what they say. You gotta bluff. You gotta bluff. Okay, so we're here in Visual Studio Code. We just fired up this README. This is Markdown, which is interpreted by web browsers and the like. We just go Control-Shift-V. We can see a preview here, and that looks like a good start. Okay. So fair enough. Let's go back and git bash, get that set up. And we can pretty much just follow here. Huh. That's interesting. Let's just keep following these steps. Okay, that works now. Okay, that seems to be working. So we can just refresh that. And we have that there. Awesome, that's good. But let's actually look into this. So we need to set this up with our classes. And if we look back at our diagram, what we're essentially doing is we are making the GUI. Control, and each of these will have things. Alrighty, so what we can do is let's make it's pretty much just GUI at this point. And what we need to do is we need to set up I'm going to set up a link there. So this is the text that will be displayed in the link, and then the path to the link. Just for now, just to test. All right. Control-Shift-V, click that, and yep, that is linking to the GUI file. Okay, awesome. So now I'll go ahead and create those other bits. This is fine for now. Okay, it's looking good. So we'll go to the control. Okay, so there we have it. I'll just check that preview again, and that looks pretty good. So some things are starting to pop up. I mean, when I look at this, these buttons, I have a mouse move. It would be great if I had a function in my button that said, hey, do we have the, like, this given position, is this given position within your rectangle? That would be a great thing to have. I'm also seeing main loop is returning some sort of enum, so I'm going to have to make like a common include folder and define those things. But these are things that we can start to think about them now, but just have them here so that we can, when we implement the classes, make changes as needed, change the documentation as needed, and yeah, that's looking great. So, and we'll just keep going with this. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now we'll pop over to the view. Now, in terms of class variables, I don't know. Let's leave this to Andre. He's the graphics expert. Why can I not speak? All we really care about at the moment is that we have a render function. And the render function takes in widgets, and the type is a dictionary. Okay, so at the moment, we'll treat it as a black box. It just has a render function. We do need to know about the underlying widgets. Okay, fine, all good. Right, now we'll go to the more involved of these. Actually, these probably shouldn't be tuples. These should be NumPy arrays. With two components. I probably shouldn't say can be clicked on, because everything can be clicked on, and it's not the point of this class to worry about that. We'll just leave that. Okay. Oh, I did have this. I wrote this down in my original notes. Okay, so we have getters and setters. We also have a function which indicates for a given position, I think we can get away with that. That's enough for now. Alrighty, so let's try this. We've got everything set up. I think that's correct, at least correct enough to start. Let's head back. Set this all up. Okay, let's try that. All right, cool. So we can go to GUI. We can look at model. Yep. Great. We can look at control. And then what? Oh, buttons. Okay, what's a button object? We'll go back in there. Oh, okay, good. All right, I understand that. View. Okay, I'm implementing the view function. Render. It's going to have a bunch of widgets. We're going to have frames, buttons, labels, sliders. Okay, what are the widgets? Okay, I can look at them up here. Okay, awesome. So I think that's fine. All right, so this has just been an example of setting up a project, planning it out, starting to write documentation, and I hope you enjoy that. Like I said, I was going to go through a few more tutorials till I started working on this, but let's just start it now. Why not? And we'll pick up the slack as we go. Alrighty, I'll see you again in a bit. Bye.